All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get ready to get started in a little bit. I will give you a heads up. I will send you on a bit of a scavenger hunt in the beginning here. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that would be the case. You can feel free to grab as many items that are as close to you, but I'm going to give people a couple more minutes to be able to join since it's before 7:30. But be prepared to find a number of items as we get ready to do the interactive Stations of the Cross. Where are you going? All right, it is 7:30. So the first thing I want to say is welcome to the service. If you have joined in by calling on the phone, I'm going to ask that you remain quiet if possible, as while this is interactive, it's more by physical things that we're doing. And sometimes if you talk, others can hear it. So I'm going to ask that everybody try to remain in a state of worship. The other thing that I had mentioned a little bit ago is that there are a number of things that I am going to ask people to grab, because this is going to be interactive. And so I'm really glad to be able to do something a little bit different. I'm actually, if you are not watching, I'm actually doing this from my home. I'm doing this from the parsonage of the church because I wanted this to be a little bit more personal. Most of everything that we've done so far has been at the church. And so tonight it's just going to be me. It's not going to be me and Pastor Barbara and Allah. It's just me. And I wanted to spend some time just with you and everyone who is watching as we do this kind of family-friendly, kid-friendly, and also reflective time, because I hope at the end will really be a pretty powerful moment for everyone that is involved. So I'm going to ask at this time, if you have something, if you have a candle, for you to be able to go and grab a candle, that would be great. And to light that candle. And as you go and grab that candle, I want to talk to you a little bit about the candle. What this candle is going to represent as we keep it lit the entire time that we are going to be in worship together this evening is that candle is going to represent Jesus. And so that's why we have the candle that will be lit. And so I invite you to light that candle in your homes. If not, I have a candle here. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'm using a Yankee candle, a cinnamon stick, if you want me to get very specific. And so I just invite you to light a candle in your home, because I want us to be reminded that as we gather for Good Friday, that really what this is about is everything that Jesus went through. And so by lighting that candle, hopefully it will serve as a reminder that will sit right by you that Christ is at the center of this. So the next thing that I'm going to have you do after you have your candle, hopefully you have that raring to go, is I'm going to have you take a field trip, because I don't know that everybody has something as accessible. Again, this was with the idea that it would be somewhat kid-friendly as well, that would get them up and moving around, is to find a mirror. And so I have a mirror right here, and this is one of Jackson's favorite things to play with. And so I have a medium-sized mirror here that you would hang up on the wall. And one of the reasons why I want you, to grab a mirror is I want you to just stop and take a minute, and I want you to look at it. And I want you to think of something that you're afraid of. If you can't get up and go over to a mirror, then I want you to just picture yourself looking at a mirror. And I want you to reflect on something that you are afraid of. And I think that we live in a time that it should be pretty easy to think of something to be afraid of, as everything is going on in the world. But the reason why I wanted you to stop and think about something to be afraid of as you were looking in the mirror, or stopping and taking a minute and thinking about that, is because that takes us to Jesus in the garden. When Jesus was in the garden by himself off in prayer, and the disciples that he had brought with him had fallen asleep, Jesus asked for the cup to be taken from him. Jesus was afraid, but Jesus ultimately said, "Not my will, but yours." And so that's why I wanted everyone to just take a minute and think of something that they're afraid of right now. Because if Jesus went through it, then most likely we are as well. But in the midst of us being afraid, we can be reminded that we have a Savior that walks with us. So the next item that I'd like you to find as you go through your house is a dark cloth. Maybe there's even a comforter or something that you keep on the couch, something nearby. Maybe your coffee table is dark, and that'll work. Or maybe you have a book by you that has some form of a dark cover. I happen to have a washcloth here that is a maroon type color, a dark, I guess it's more of a crimson type color. And the reason why I want you to find that dark color is because this represents sin. And ultimately, sin is kind of what really made Good Friday happen. In order for us to have and to celebrate this beautiful gift that we have in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, it's our sin that put Christ on the cross. And so I just want us to take a minute with that object that's dark, and I just want us to stop and reflect and think about it. Next, what I would like us to do is to find a piece of paper. It can be a scrap piece of paper that's sitting around. I'm sure you have plenty of paper. You've always wondered, what in the world am I going to do with it? Maybe you got junk mail today, and you have paper that's just kind of sitting right there that's begging to be used. I want you to take out a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a very large sheet of paper. I have a piece of paper that has a snowflake on it here. It's not a very large sheet of paper. In fact, this sheet of paper is probably too big for what I'm asking us to do here. But what I want us to do is I want us to just take a minute, and I want us to write down just 4 characteristics of hope that you have. What are 4 things that you hope for in the coming weeks, in the coming months, maybe in the coming year? Maybe you originally did this in January, and because that's the marker of a new beginning. We make these New Year's resolutions and we think, oh, this is going to be great. It's a new me. And then a virus comes and changes everything. But really what Lent is about, it's about a time of reflection. And when you take time to reflect, it requires change. And in order for change to happen, there has to be a hope. There has to be something new that we want. And so what I'm asking for you to do is to take a couple of minutes here, and I'm going to do it right now, for 4 things that you hope for. Again, whether it be in the next coming days, the next coming weeks, or within the next year, that you would really like to see happen. So write down 4 things that you would like to see happen, 4 hopes that you have, 4 dreams that you have for yourself. If you are in the process of joining us or have joined us within the last 10 minutes or so, I asked everyone to find a candle and to light it, which represents Christ. And that candle will come into play again in a little bit here towards the end. And right now we're in the process of writing down 4 hopes that we have, whether they be for ourselves or for our families. We take time to reflect in the Lent season, which is the point of Lent, is for us to take time and reflect. When Jesus was on trial, which is what this part is about, there were accusations of things that were thrown at him and records that were written down in different things. I chose to take a little bit more of an optimistic approach during this, simply because of the times and what's going on. I felt that we really needed to have some optimism in the midst of everything that's going on, and so that's why I did 4 hopes. You can do this at a later time if you would like, where you write down 4 things that you would really like to change, or 4 things that you need to work on. But I wanted to go with a little bit of optimism, considering all of the circumstances that are taking place right now. I hope everybody has had the chance to do that. Right now, we're going to get ready to take a field trip as we walk into the kitchen here at the parsonage. For anybody who is wondering, you can tell Beth the dishes are done. I did the dishes earlier as we go out here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you kind of towards the sink. I'm going to try to put this up a little bit. And what I want us to do right now is the 4th station is to go to a sink, and I want you to wash your hands. Hopefully this is something you're very familiar with. And what this symbolizes and what this represents is when Pilate is asked to make this decision, he finally just throws his hands up and says, "I wash my hands of this matter." And so what I want us to do is to just take a minute, and I want us to just reflect and think about the fact of having to make difficult decisions, and the fact that sometimes we need to step up to the plate, and then we have to make difficult decisions, that we can't always just wash our hands. But I also want us, in the midst of while we're washing our hands, to think about the fact that the pressure just got to Pontius Pilate. And in that moment, what Jesus must have been feeling, realizing that his fate was finally ultimately sealed, And the fact that as he's watching Pilate wash his hands, and he's hearing, crucify him, or he's hearing in the crowd, we choose Barabbas, we choose Barabbas. Just what Jesus must have been feeling in that moment. So as you get ready to wash your hands, I just kind of want you to process that. What was Jesus feeling? May we be a people that are able to make difficult decisions when we have to. We're going to get ready to move to our next station here at the house. And at the next station, I want you to find a tree outside of your window. My original plan was to have everyone go outside and spend some time outside, but I thought the wind was going to have died down, but it hasn't. And so my plan has kind of gone out the window with that. And so I'm going to have to kind of show outside the window here of the door. I hope that you can see it. We have in the front yard here, Gams, I need you to stay, buds. We have a beautiful tree that's in the process of blossoming. And so I'm going to show that tree, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to talk for a minute. One of the things that is a symbol that oftentimes we don't talk about outside of Easter is the crown of thorns. And the crown of thorns are placed on the head of Jesus. And this is part of the process that Jesus goes through that's so difficult. Pastor Barbara and I were talking earlier today that this is a really hard part for clergy because we have to talk about everything that Jesus went through and all the pain and different things that Jesus went through. And Good Friday is a very, very hard day to talk about. But I just want you to, as you look at the tree, one of the reasons we have a rose bush in the back, and that's originally what I was going to talk about when I thought that I wouldn't have to battle the wind and everything like that, because that has thorns. And I want to be able to show the thorns that are on this rose bush, because for a rose bush, it has some really big thorns. But I just want us to think about everything that Jesus went through for that short period of, well, not short period of time, but for that period of time. I want us to take a short period of time here just to think about everything that Jesus went through, from being betrayed by his friends, which that hurts, to just the amount of hearing what people are saying about you, which that hurts, to the physical torture that Jesus went through, which that hurt. One of the things that I talked with Pastor Barbara about, and I know that we're at Good Friday, spoiler alert, Sunday is coming. I told her that one of the things that makes this a little bit easier to talk about is that we know that Sunday is coming. And that in the midst of everything that Jesus went through, that he at least knew that Sunday was coming. And so that's why I switched and I've used the tree, because it's in bloom and there is life that is coming. In the midst of, there's actually a bunch of dead trees around that you can't see in the yard, but there is that little bit of life that is springing up. But when you look at the shrub or the tree that is outside of your window, I just want you to take a moment and reflect on the pain that Jesus went through. As we get ready to transition into the next station, since we've had a couple of people that have joined us, again, I want to ask that you take a minute and you go and find a candle inside of your house and you light it much like this one. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't even have to be white, just as long as it's a candle, because that represents that Christ is the light of the world. And so it's going to play a significant role at the very end of this service here. So I want to make sure that everybody has that candle and that it's lit. But at this time, I would also like, while you're up finding your candle, if you don't have it yet, I'd like you to find a cross. Hopefully you have one somewhere in your house. Hopefully you're able to look one up, or if you aren't able to do either of those, I want you to just picture one. I often talk about the cross that we have up in our sanctuary. It's one of my favorite crosses that I've ever seen at the Methodist Church of Milltown. If you've never seen it, what it is it's a cross within a cross, as I call it. And what makes it my favorite cross out of any cross I've ever seen is that the middle cross is empty. It's a reminder of the empty tomb, and I talked about it Easter or two ago. The cross within a cross. The cross that I'm actually going to use, not many people know, but I do have tattoos. And one tattoo that I have is a tattoo on my right arm. And underneath of it, I have John 3:17. And for me, that is the whole gospel, just in a shorter verse, the verse right after the one that everybody knows. But for me, I put a cross on my body forever, because for me, that cross is a symbol of God's love. And I always want to be reminded of that. So I want you to take a moment and just reflect on the cross. And I want you to think of what that cross means for you. And I want you to take a minute and I want you to think about what Christ went through as Christ is up on the cross. Well, friends, we only have 2 stations that are left. And the 2 stations that are left, the one what I want you to do is I want you to find a picture of your family. For me, I chose to do this in the living room, partially because I have our dog Gambit here with us. And Gambit, Beth and I, we call him our first baby, right? Your pets are your children. And we've had Gambit for a number of years, and Gambit is our family. And so I wanted to make sure that as I'm going to take time and talk about this next part, I wanted to make sure that Gambit was right here with me. But I also picked this location because I have a number of pictures of the journey of my family up in this room. Over here on the left-hand side at our last church in Westmont, there was a woman there, and her name is Leslie, and she did pictures of our 5-year anniversary, and that's right over here to my left. And then right across from me is our wedding day that Beth and I now are getting ready to celebrate 10 years ago. But the pictures that I have with you here that I want to show you are things that are more recent in our life because our family has expanded. And so what I have here is I have pictures of Raylan because she's, like 3 months old, and She's an important part of this family. And then the other picture that I have here, as you're taking time hopefully to look at pictures of your family, is I have pictures of Jack and pictures of me and Beth and Jack. And these were all pictures that were hanging up, that were around, that I'll get ready when this time is over, that I'll put back up on the walls. But the reason why I wanted you to do this, friends, is because oftentimes when we think of Good Friday, we think of everything that Jesus went through, but what we don't think of is, what was Mary going through? What were the disciples going through? What were the other friends? What were all of the people who hadn't abandoned their belief in Jesus? What were they going through? So often, friends, we don't take time to think about that. But really, that's also a part of Good Friday, isn't it? Imagine being them and being there and witnessing everything that this individual that you love is going through. So I want to take a minute and I want to just stop and reflect, and I want to just think about everything that they went through. And now, friends, we come to our final station and the closing of our service here tonight. What I want you to do is, if you are gathered with your family and the kids are up and they're running around as they tend to often do, I want you to get them and I want you to gather them and I want you to get them to just sit for about 3 minutes. Because we're going to get ready to turn the lights off. And I picked 7:30, not because that's just the time that we've always done it, but because I knew that it was going to be dark. Because ultimately what happened on Good Friday is that the Pharisees and the religious leaders thought that darkness had won that day. Because what I'm going to get ready to do is I'm going to get ready to blow this candle out that I've had burning this whole time. And hopefully you have in your homes as well. That I talked about at the very beginning, that Jesus is the light of the world. And what the Pharisees and religious leaders thought had happened was that they had won, that they had extinguished this light, and that there would be darkness moving forward. But the thing is, friends, is that Sunday is coming. And so just like you're going to be in the dark for just a few minutes, be reminded that you will turn the lights on again in just a couple minutes, and that the light will rise again on Sunday. So before we get ready to turn everything off here, I just want to remind you that we will have 3 Easter services to be able to celebrate the rising of the light again. We will have one tomorrow night that we will be doing with Pastor Matt from St. Paul's and with Bishop Nicholas Brown from Ignite Church. The 3 of us will be doing this Easter vigil together. And then Sunday morning, we will be having a 7 a.m. sunrise service to celebrate the rising of the light, like I said. And we will also have our 10 a.m. Regular service. But at this time, again, I want you to gather close with your loved ones. I'm not going to ring any loud bells or anything like that, because I want the darkness to speak for itself. Because really, if we don't have Christ, it's almost like we walk in darkness. Christ is our hope. Christ is our light. And so if you are at home and you are watching this you are listening, I invite you to turn out the lights in the room, even if you don't have the candle going. Because I just want you to experience what darkness is like, and just be reminded of that, because we're so afraid in this day and age to be in the darkness. So please, friends, as I turn off the lights, I invite you to do the same. I'll let you know when it's time to turn the lights back on again. Friends, I hope the darkness spoke to you, because if we don't have the darkness, then we don't truly understand how important the light is. So I hope that wherever you are, wherever you're watching this, that you will tune in to something to be able to celebrate the light that is Jesus Christ rising from the dead, because that is the light, that is the hope that we need in the midst of the darkness of life. So friends, I hope you have a blessed evening, and I hope that you are a blessing to others. Please stay safe, and please be reflective in this next time about exactly what the light means to you and to everyone. Amen.